Now, within the past hour, Turkey has signed a deal with Russia to purchase its latest missile defense system. Now, Ankara will receive the first batch of the S400 missile system next year. The remaining 2 batteries will be produced in Turkey, but NATO allies have expressed concern. Almost all neighboring countries to Turkey, except Georgia and Iraq, have surface-to-air missile systems. Turkey is the second largest army in NATO, and it doesn't have its own air defense system. Now, Ankara sought alternative missile systems from the U.S. and France, but only Russia agreed to its demands of technology transfer and co-production. Well, President Erdogan says Turkey needs capable defenses, and the S-400 is one of the most reliable surface-to-air missile systems. It can shoot down all types of aerial targets, including aircraft, UAVs, and ballistic and cruise missiles. The U.S. didn't want Turkey to buy systems from Russia, saying it's not compatible with NATO infrastructure. Now, in response, Ankara said it won't integrate the system into NATO infrastructure. Earlier this month, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said member countries can decide for themselves what kind of missile systems they would like to buy. Well, we'll have reaction to the deal from our correspondents in Moscow and Brussels. But first, let's speak to our defense analyst, Oubai Shahbandar, who joins me here in the studio. Okay, first of all, explain why this weapons purchase is so contentious, given Turkey's status as a NATO ally.
Well, Andrea, the S-400 is the most advanced integrated air defense system in the world, with a range of around 300 kilometers and capable of reaching targets upwards of 30 kilometers in the air. This is a very big deal. This means that Turkey is now going to significantly expand its capability to defend its airspace, not only against potential hostile aircraft, but also potentially against long-range or intermediate-range ballistic missiles. Now, the system is not interoperable with NATO systems, to include NATO radar. And so this is completely unprecedented for a NATO military member to have this Russian weapon system. That being said, let's remember in 2015, it was the Obama administration that removed the American Patriot air defense systems from Turkish soil, which were then needed to defend Turkey against any possible ballistic missile attacks, to include Scud missiles that were being fired by the Syrian regime. So this is definitely a historical agreement. The Russians are going to finance around 55% of the cost, from the total of $2.5 billion, and it allows Turkey the technology to develop an indigenous military defense capability to eventually produce on its own these advanced weapon systems, which has been a major priority for Turkish President Erdogan.
And Turkey had to fight for that. I mean, that was something the U.S. and France apparently weren't willing to give, but Russia finally decided it would. Let me ask you, though, something. You say this is an unprecedented deal, given Turkey is a NATO member, but why would NATO feel it might be dangerous for the alliance?
Now, NATO is an alliance that was essentially historically established to defend the members from the Soviet Union or the Warsaw Pact. Now, as we know, the Soviet Union has collapsed. It's a different story now with Russia. But many NATO countries view this advanced Russian military system, to include the Russian radar that comes along with these missiles, to potentially be a threat to their own defense capabilities in the future. So the systems by NATO military members cannot integrate with the Russian radar or with the Russian missiles. That is viewed as a threat by some Western countries. But also, what's potentially a threat to some of these countries is the fact that now Turkey can produce its own advanced missiles, air defense missiles, and this sets a precedent for Russia potentially exporting the S-400 to other countries in the Middle East, some of whom are American allies. We're hearing word from some sources in Moscow that Russia is in negotiations with other American allies to sell the S-400. It's an advanced system, and they can get it quickly into the field. It'll probably be in Turkey by 2020.
Okay, Oubai, thank you so much for that.